Hey everyone, it's Kyle here with Honest Records. Thank you so much for the comments and love that I got on the studio walkthrough that I posted this last weekend. I appreciate all that. I think a lot of you had some really cool comments on like, oh, you utilized your space really well. It has a very nice look and feel, and that was, you know, well appreciated that people noticed that. Also figured, you know what, why not better to make another video that maybe goes into those certain things that people were actually making comments on, and as well as messaging me on. And I think the first thing I would maybe go over is the studio desk, and you know, kind of jump into what is here and how it's all working together. So come on down for a closer look. I think the first thing I'll point out is that this desk is a modular desk that I custom built. It's made in 3 sections, and the center section actually can lift out. And basically why I built it that way is if I ever changed my DAW controller or went to an analog board, that this section has to, you know, maybe move out or in, you know, accordingly to what that item is. So with having separate wings, I can move this in and out without having to basically rebuild the whole desk. Another kind of cool feature I ended up doing is I built in some drawer slides for, you know, workspace above and beyond. I did buy a pull-out keyboard tray that actually pulls out and it lifts up like this. So if I slide my computer chair underneath it, if I'm in, you know, a certain section and I need to use that. Another keyboard tray on this side as well. So and kind of everything fits together, and it's actually on rollers, so I can roll this out and get behind it pretty easily. I have 12 U's of rack space on the bottom, 8 on the top, and 3 at the top, like bridge section there. And I basically, this is built out of MDF, and I did truck bed liner as the actual liner over it. But I did do a black like base paint first as kind of like a primer coat, and then I ended up building out the color with the truck bed liner. So this is the Icon Pro Audio V1M and V1X system. This is a USB DAW controller that utilizes the Mackie protocol to communicate with most DAWs. Now I have supercharged this. I found a guy online that actually wrote a custom script to allow this desk to control much more in depth into Studio One and allow you to really utilize this Stream Deck to have much more features. So for example, I've mapped this where I can select the bus. There's all my buses, my VCAs. Actually, I don't have any in this. All my effect sends, my outputs, my inputs, my audio tracks, so on and so forth. So you can really like see things at a glance. Now it has like this Stream Deck kind of touchscreen on it, and you can map different things in it, and it's got a bunch of different function layers that you can do with it. It's pretty doggone cool. So this system here is 2 X's and a single V1 master. And the master is 8 faders with 1 master, and each section is 8 faders. So I have a total of 32 faders plus 1 master. And each one of the LCD screens are multicolor, which that's something that custom script actually does, is allow it supercharges these strips a lot more, and it actually brings a lot more information to them than what they actually do in the Mackie protocol. And that's really like just a limitation of the Mackie protocol. Something that he did is, of course, he bring all the colors, so your color matches your strips on the DAW matches here, as well as he ended up moving the volume level onto the scribble strip here, so it gives you the channel number and then the actual like volume level there. And if you were to hit pan, you can actually see the pan section there, so that kind of like supercharged it a lot more. You got a lot more visual off of it as well. So a really cool piece. Basically, these are all USB-C connections, so there's one for each unit. And then I have a USB hub, a 4-port hub back there that sends that USB back to the PC. So really cool. Next thing we'll kind of talk about is this this marquee monitor. It's a pretty cool monitor as it allows me to see a single track zoomed in. So I have like the timeline up above. It allows me to have like a really nice view of that single track. And basically Studio One allows you to undock things, and this is what they call the editor view. It allows you to really like dive into that specific track, and it can follow the selection of each one of your tracks too. It's super, super cool. It is a 28-inch diagonal monitor, and its native resolution is 1080 by 360 pixels high. And it's just a HDMI connection going to my graphics card and my computer. And I just set it up as a completely separate monitor. And I literally just use it for that in itself, for that specific view. It's really nice to have, and it's a nice feature to really like see a track without having to zoom, into the DAW session very, very in depth. Next thing we'll talk about is my touchscreen over here. So as you can see, this touchscreen here allows me to control plugins. It's super, super nice and responsive. I can just literally touch the parameter and drag my finger up and down. I can actually touch multiple parameters and adjust things as well, and it allows me to do that. I found that this works much better than trying to map stuff to encoders, and the encoders just don't line up with what everything views. And there's just nobody out there that makes a really good, controller that just for plugins. There's some out there that are touchscreen with some analog knobs, I should say encoders, because they do multiple things and they're endless. So, but the encoders are around the sides and top, and it just, nothing really like actually kind of had a rhyme or reason, because there's never a common layout of a plugin. So it's really hard to kind of find something really, really quickly to me, or just having a native like this is really, really easy. The next thing I have as part of the computer is I have a secondary touchscreen over here. This is literally for all of my preamps. I have remote controllable preamps in the studio. So I'm using Dante and Focusrite RedNet for I/O and preamps in the studio. And I have a few of these actually located in a remote rack over in the live room. And I have an 8-in, 8-out line interface located over in the rack room, or in the live room. And basically that's my reamp box where I send it out analog and reamp into an amplifier. But super, super nice, because it's, again, just like anything else. I click and drag, and I can move the fader, the gain up and down. I can see real-time metering on those as well. Super, super nice, efficient, works very, very well. The next thing we'll talk about is we'll kind of jump back over to this over here. I'm sure this maybe caught your eye. So basically this is my monitor controller, but it's a really supercharged monitor controller. I actually built this user interface, and I'm utilizing multiple products together to make this all work this way. But I found that this works a little bit, it's more elegant, and you got a lot more features with it than like a classic monitor controller. Because basically all this is it's an Ethernet touchscreen that communicates back, and it's loading basically an app into it, and I built the app. And this allows me to adjust the volume of my speaker sets and everything else. I can mute things, unmute things, adjust volumes. I can listen to different speaker sets. And, I'm not going to get too in depth with this, so maybe I'll make a video, because there's a lot of features this thing has. But it's super, super cool. It gives me some metering and things like that. So really, really cool. The next thing that I think a lot of people take advantage of is I have security cameras in here, and I have NVR and multiple IP-based cameras in the studio. And that's really, really good, because you can monitor things. Also, I found it's actually kind of nice because it records everything, and each camera has a microphone in it. And how many times do you have artists want to do like behind the scenes videos of their tracking sessions and their recording sessions? This is a really good and easy way, an efficient way to get straight up feeds from their session, and audio and everything straight off of it that they could take and use. So like sometimes I'll offer that or I'll sell the footage out of it, where I'll pull all the footage and stick it in a hard drive for them, and they can get basically everything from their session of all the different angles and everything like that of it. And you know, use it for a behind the scenes video or something. So that's kind of something cool that I think a lot of people just really don't, you know, think about or talk about. So the next thing I think we'll talk about is USB. I think a lot of people, USB is really heavily used in our in recording, just because all of our, you know, peripherals and everything are USB. And I have basically 2 USB hubs. I have actually 3, I should say, because I have one behind the console back there, and then I have 2 13-port USB 3.0 hubs, one on this side, and then I have one over on this rack over here. It's actually right behind there, and that basically does all of my IO, or I shouldn't say IO, but all of my MIDI controllers and everything over there, and the USBs for the 11 and the profiler and everything is in, go to that. But essentially, like this one over here is actually my main items. It's like my webcam, everything that I use on a daily basis is in this one. This one here is more for recording, where all of my recording hardware going to it, and I turn it on and off when I don't need it. So that's kind of a cool thing. Next thing we'll talk about is the monitors. They're 2 49-inch ultra wides, and literally I utilize the top one for the timeline, as you can see, and the bottom one is for all the faders. Something cool is these are both DisplayPort. And native resolution, they're 5120 by 1440 pixels, so they're, you know, about 5K res. But I'm doing a split off the top one, and if you paid attention to the video, there's actually a ultra wide in the isolation room over here to our left, and I basically have 2 outputs off my graphics card for that to be able to do that. And then you know, all the other monitors are HDMI output, but all the ultra wides are DisplayPort. Another cool thing you probably see is I am an NS10 guy. Actually, I've mixed on NS10s for many years. I think some people hate them, some people love them. There's the thing for me, they work really good. Again, I'm actually doing a little bit of supercharging to them. I actually am running a external DSP that is kind of part of that monitor controller that you saw over here, but essentially I'm doing all the time alignment and flattening the response of those to the room, as well as same with the mix cubes here that I have. Those I'm flattening to the room, as well as the 2 little NS10Ms that are up on the side here. Those are like my way of listening to it on like a cheap computer speaker. And then I have off to the side over here, off camera, I have like a little mono version of those, where it's just 2 woofers and a tweeter in the middle, and I can down mix to mono and stereo off of my monitor controller, and, you know, listen to a mix that way. So a couple other cool things I think that, you know, I'll talk about is in each one of the racks down below. We'll kind of back up here. Each one of the racks down below. So this one here, basically I have a rack drawer, power sequencer, and my NVR for all the camera feeds, and then some power distribution in there for things. But basically what that sequencer does, it sequences up and down the desk, so everything that is on my daily operations, like monitors and things like that, sequence up and down with that. And I'm actually controlling all that sequencing with the touchscreen here, that monitor controller, so I can turn the whole desk on and off with the push of a button instead of going around and flipping switches. On this side, bottom, I basically have 2 QSC amplifiers that's doing all the power for the speaker system in here, the subwoofers and everything. Those are actually a networked base amplifier. So there is no really any analog connections that are happening here. Everything is going over the network, which makes it super fast and not a lot of latency. Hardly any, like 0.1 milliseconds in to out from DAW through everything, DSP out. Nobody notices it. But those are an 8-channel amplifier for the bottom and a 4-channel on top. And basically those are doing the speaker systems inside the studio and control room and isolation room, and powering all those speakers. You know, I'm not going to get too heavily in that, but there's a lot more that get involved in that. Then I have a RedNet box above that. which is a 16 in, 16 out, line in, line out RedNet box onto the Dante network. And that is basically doing all of my line in, line out for, like, if I'm going to an analog compressor or to my headphone preamp, anything that's analog connections that just don't allow me to do Dante. So super cool there. Moving up to the top point behind that monitor is my patch bay, as well as my mic, or not mic, my headphone preamp. And then I have a network switch back there. And then there's actually fiber going between the two sides of the rack. So I got two 24-port network switches in there that allow me to put stuff up on the network and send data back and forth between two racks without having like 20 network cables going back and forth. Super, super elegant and easy. On this side, I basically just have some 166s. I'll be honest, I'm more in the box guy. I'm not an analog guy. Yes, I'd love to have some analog equipment, but it's just not in my budget or in my need at this point in time because I just have so much more flexibility in the box currently. So, and then up top here, these guys right here, you'll see with the green lights, these are actually 8 outlet boxes. There's 8 outlets on there, and it's a networked box that I can actually turn things on and off. So it's super cool if I need to like reboot something or turn off a piece of I/O gear, I can definitely turn that on and off. And basically I do all that from this touch panel right here. And I literally just hit this little power button right here. And I basically can see all the outlets that are on there. I have 4 of them in here. There's 2 over there and 1 there and 1 over here. But basically I can shut on and off different things really, really quickly and easily with it, and sequence up and down stuff, and sequence the whole desk off with the push of a button, or sequence the whole desk, everything on with the push of a button. So super easy, nice. Don't have to go around and flip 20 switches. Again, that's all programming and everything else that I've done over the years. Last but not least, this might have caught your eye. This is a pretty cool keyboard that I'm starting to not beta test, but really kind of, it's brand new. They just kind of got going on the market this last year, but I'm working on, trying to integrate that into my workflow. And it's a split keyboard, and it's super, super cool. I'm not going to get too much in it, but if you want to see what this is, you can go and look up on Google Naya Create, Naya Create, and you can kind of see what it is. It's pretty cool. I'm loving it so far, but I'm working on the Bluetooth side of it and getting that all to work nicely with my system. So, but all right, guys. Well, I hope that this was a great walkthrough of some of the basics I have. I think I'll do a walkthrough on the computer next. That's a whole nother ball game. The computer over here is pretty beefy. There's a lot of stuff going on in that, and we'll talk about hardware of what I'm using in the computer to actually make my sessions go faster, allow me to have a much more robust system and not run into a lot of issues. So hope to see you guys soon. Like, comment, check out my website, www.onearthrecords.com. You can kind of see some of the stuff I got up on there. So, all right, guys, have a great week.